What up, my people? ¿Qué pasa, mi gente? Welcome. Bienvenido to another episode, otro episodio de Hoy en Día TV. I am your host and producer, Yesty Rodriguez, welcoming to the stage my amazing co-hosts. We have Nadine Barton and we have Dr. CC, the Actionist. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How y'all doing?
Hola. Hello.
Hey,
Happy
hey, hey,
Thursday.
doing good.
Hello, hello. Well, happy Juneteenth Thursday. Look at that. Hey.
Happy Juneteenth Thursday.
How y'all been since the last time we saw each other virtually here?
We've been great. I've been great. Dr. Ciandra. Dr. Ciandra. That name, the name just rings, the ringing of that name is just amazing.
Yeah, things have been really, really lovely. Today, Juneteenth, it's like about to be like thunderous clouds happening right here. The sky just went black. The lights are out. Police are directing traffic. It's a lot going on right now. But nevertheless, life is good. Life is good. It's been a very, very good week, even on last week. And so just happy to be here on the show with you ladies.
It's been raining like crazy here, by the way. Like yesterday, the day before, it was just like thunder and lightning, like crazy.
I wonder why it's raining so much.
Hurricane season, maybe.
We've already entered hurricane season.
I have no idea.
Hold on. Let me see. When is hurricane season? Let me look this up here.
I believe
Yeah,
it
this
starts
is the
in
time of
June,
year.
if I'm not
Yep,
mistaken.
yeah.
You know
This is
what?
the time for the hurricane. Uh-huh.
You are right. It does say for the Atlantic hurricane season, so that targets U.S., Caribbean, and Gulf of Mexico. We actually started hurricane season June 1st, and it goes all the way through November 30th. Really? Oh, wow.
Yes, and a matter of fact, there's a Hurricane Eric on its way. Like what? Maybe that's why we were getting all this rain.
Eric. Where all these names come from? Because it's like, I was talking to my honey a while ago about that. I'm like, what's interesting? They name hurricanes after people's names. Why don't they just say like Hurricane 1, Hurricane 2, Hurricane Red or Purple or Pink? Like why after people? Like, what's that about?
I remember when I was living in Florida, they had a Hurricane Nadine. I'm like, excuse me? But of course they spell it Nadine, so I'm like, they're not talking about me. So yeah.
So
I know.
Says,
I always
says,
wondered about those names too.
yeah, it says striking 3 tropical waves in Atlantic, Eric could become Category 3 hurricane before landfall.
Wow. So does it say like is it targeting Georgia, Florida, and North Carolina, or does it specify other locations?
It says it's making landfall in Mexico June 19th.
Today in
Yeah.
Mexico. Wow, but Mexico's pretty
We're
far.
getting a lot of rain. That's the reason why.
That is so interesting. So I looked up why are hurricanes named after people, and this is what I received, and I'm going to get your thoughts on this. So number one is for clarity and communication. So saying Hurricane Maria or Hurricane Eric or Hurricane Paul or what have you, Nadine, right, is more memorable and less confusing than using technical coordinates or long identification numbers.
Number 1 and number 2, that's not long. Red, white, or blue, those are not long. I mean, come on now.
I know, right? Exactly. So number 2 reduces confusion. When multiple storms are active at the same time, which happen often, using names helps the public and forecasters keep everyone straight. Interesting. So an example of this was in 2005, there were 4 hurricanes all at once. Ooh, that's crazy. Naming helped distinguish between Hurricane Katrina, Rita, Ophelia, and Philip. Wow.
Yes. I was in Florida then. I was there for Katrina and all the other little hurricanes that was trickling behind that.
The whole family came out in 2005. Yikes.
That was crazy.
That is crazy. And talking about just just things that happen within our history, right? Today is Juneteenth, so let's dive a little bit deeper into Juneteenth, because I'm really happy and excited that now it's being recognized as a holiday, that we can look at our calendar to say, okay, today is Juneteenth, right? And now that it's becoming a lot more popular, but a lot more recognized. But it took a long time for us to get here, to pivot to this point where we can say Juneteenth, also known as Freedom Day, Emancipation Day, and Black Independence Day, is celebrated today on June 19th each and every year. So what are your thoughts about that, ladies?
It's been a long time coming. I mean, if it started at 1865, why now? Why they're just starting to recognize Juneteenth? I mean, it's been so many years before our grandmothers were even here. So why are they just now, identifying the holiday as, I mean, it's been a few years now, but still it took a long time to get here.
That's a really good point. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just happy we got a holiday in June because I was always saying like we need to have a holiday every month. And you guys know June, that was a month that we didn't have any holidays. So I'm like, yes, but it is a memorable holiday. And the fact that, it took us, we were free and didn't even know we were free. We were still, out there in the cotton fields and being enslaved and this and this and that. And so for us to even realize and recognize that we were free, that's really something, right? So yeah, I'm happy that we have Juneteenth and people are celebrating it and like but it's a floating holiday, so it's not recognized, right? Because what businesses now, they get to choose pretty much the holidays in which they want to, allow their employees to have off. But it is one of those floating holidays that people can kind of choose. So
that is a good point.
But they said the freedom was delayed, but it's not denied. So I guess better late than never.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just for some background for those who don't know Juneteenth and how it all began. So it marks the day in 1865 when Union General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas, and announced that all enslaved African Americans were free. 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed by Abraham Lincoln on January 1st, 1863. So why the delay is the question, and it raises a good point to where Nadine, she asked that question too. Why not, right? Why was it so delayed? So a little bit of background is the Emancipation Proclamation only applied to Confederate states in rebellion and could not be enforced in areas still under the Confederate control. And so in Texas, being geographically isolated and slow to fall under Union control, they continued slavery up until General Granger's arrival. June 19th, 1865 became a symbolic date that represented that Black freedom that we now see today in the U.S. The first celebrations of Juneteenth were actually celebrated in 1866, and early festivities included prayer services, spiritual songs, readings of the Emancipation Proclamation, and gathering amongst families. And so throughout the time, it became an important annual tradition, particularly in Texas and Southern Black communities. And we here are considered Southerners because we're past, the line with North and South. And so recognizing this as a federal holiday. So back in 2021, so this was just recent because we're only in 2025. So in 2021, Juneteenth became a federal holiday when President Joe Biden signed it into law, making it the 11th official federal holiday in the U.S. Mm-hmm. It was the first new federal holiday it was the first new federal holiday since MLK, Martin Luther King Jr.'s Day, was recognized back in 1983. And so some traditions that you can see or experience within Juneteenth is we're going to have some cookouts, right? We're going to have some good food, music, festivities, storytelling, educational events. You see people wearing the color red, which symbolizes the resilience and the sacrifice of enslaved people. And also people are displaying the actual Juneteenth flag, which is bursting star, that to symbolize new freedom and new people. So anything else to add to that, ladies, from what I just shared?
So they're basically saying that the delay was because the slaveholders, they wanted free labor, so they didn't push the information out. They were being selfish as always. So
yeah, and that's exactly what people called out, is that people were free and they had no clue that they were even free.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? That's why it's so important, to push education and for people to read. because you know that a lot of the slaves, they couldn't read. So had they been able to get a hold of even the newspapers, even, because I'm pretty sure that was like contraband. You know what I'm saying? There were certain things they could and could not have, right? Just
Right.
like in prison, it was like contraband because they didn't want them to read. So that's a form of enslavement, and that's why just a push for education is, we have, in our nation today, the illiteracy is exponential. It is out of control. You got people graduating high school and even some in college, and they can barely read. And that's a problem. But yeah, the slave masters were doing what slave masters do, and that was to oppress and to keep information away from people so that they could not know, right, that they were truly free. But by the grace of God, he says, let my people go. Okay, you know what I'm saying? So we are excited
Exactly.
about Juneteenth.
Yeah, and they also said there was a lack of union presence.
Hmm. Right. Yeah. There's just a lot of factors that really contributed to that, but I'm really glad that it finally became recognized and people can celebrate openly and not feel like they have to hide, right? So again, happy Juneteenth to all that celebrated. This is an amazing holiday. Although it is floating, like Dr. Cece called out, it's still here for us to celebrate. So enjoy it.
Yes, ma'am.
And truly,
All
it's for all people, because in the slave movement, it wasn't just black people doing things to help make us free, but it was white people too that came alongside. You know what I'm saying? So it's really freedom, truly freedom for all, because beginning, it started a movement, to really set a precedent, like no man should be owning another man. No man should be owning another human. You know what I'm saying? So it's really freedom for all. And so I hope all races, all creeds, all colors are celebrating Juneteenth, because it wasn't just our liberation, but it was a human, right? A human movement for all people to be free.
absolutely.
Exactly. Yep. You are right.
Cece, you brought up a good point about literacy in general. And so I went ahead and did some research with that real quick here. And it's interesting because as of 2025, 754 million adults worldwide remain illiterate, and 2/3 of them are women. Wow. Wow. And so it says literacy has risen globally from 67% in 1975 to 86%, which is great. There's still learning poverty. That's the downside to that, which is worsening. And so out of every 10 children, 6 out of 10 children complete primary school unable to read a simple sentence or do a basic math, per UNESCO's 2025 report, UNESCO 2025 report. So this issue spans both both low income nations and wealthy ones like the US, where nearly a third of 8th grade scores were below reading level averages. So that's crazy.
So listen, I went to a book signing some months ago, and I actually met a retired veteran. He's now a school principal. I won't say which area he's in or which school he's a principal, but he basically said he's been fired in the Department of Education because they're purposely keeping the information from the kids, and especially with brown and black children. And also, they're having them graduate without knowing literally how to read half of the time. I I put that on everything. That's what that man told me. I'm like,
I believe you. I believe you. And I really wish I was there to talk with him because I want to say this. It's like to the people in the educational system who are pushing these kids out, knowing that they can't read and write, these kids are our future. What is that going to do to our future? We're going to have to depend on these people in the future for different things, right? So that's mind-boggling that that's happening. Like really, I hope that somebody puts a stop to this soon because that's not good.
mm-hmm.
Because here's the thing, it not only affects them, but it affects our nation as a whole. And not only that, with the information being withheld, it's ultimately up to the parents, right? If my child, if I'm sitting down reading with them every night or every other night or whatever, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to definitely notice the deficits, right? I'm going to notice, okay, they're having issues with pronunciations or enunciations and orthotics and all of these different things, and so it falls back on the parents' lap. It truly, truly does. Because if the parent is spending the time with the child, they're going to notice these things. And not only that, it's their right that they should exercise their amendments and the power, right, to say, hey, you guys are not educating my children. You see what I'm saying? It always falls back to the parent, at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day. So, I blame the educators, but I also, I'm not going to say that I blame, but I hold them responsible in high regard, as well as the parents, because it's a team. You see what I'm saying? So with my little one, he's my youngest is now 8. And so we have to read every day. He hates it. I don't know what it is with boys and reading, but he just doesn't like it. But I'm like, buddy, you have to know how to read, because if not, anybody can rip you off. I say you're a great little negotiator, but if you can't read basic sentences and know how to, pronunciate words and sound things out, you're going to be at a loss, and you're going to be looked at. And I tell them straight up, you're going to be looked at as ignorant. You don't want to be seen, looking ignorant, because you're not ignorant. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to take some time for us to practice, but it's the parents' ultimate responsibility to know whether or not their child can read, write, do math, whatever the case may be, even sign their names, because cursive is not taught in school anymore, right? That's a thing of the past. It's been a thing of the past for several years. But I'm like, how are you going to sign your name? God forbid, not like back in the day with an X, you know what I'm saying? And not printing it. You see what I'm saying? You need to have an authentic and signature, that's yours, that's unique to you, to your handwriting. Your handwriting tells great things about you as well, you know so it falls
Exactly.
back truly in the laps of the parents, and the parents have to get out to advocate for the children and hold these educators responsible, because if they're not teaching our kids, they need to be removed.
So if cursive was taken out of the school, I'm just curious, what are their signatures looking like?
It's all print. They just print, like in the block style letters, like anybody can print, because they teach them all how to write the same. You know what I'm saying? So there's no uniqueness or anything when it comes to that. So my little guy, we have our little cursive worksheets and things like that, and teaching him how to write his name, and he actually likes it because he actually can write faster. So he's like getting his
Right.
work done faster, right? So he can write faster using the and it's fun because he can make it how he wants it to be and not how they're telling him it needs to be. So he likes that autonomy and just kind of being that individual to be able to write his name the way that he chooses.
And then you
Right.
have these little trends on TikTok where the parents, they're having the kids sit in front of them doing homework and they're embarrassing them. I mean, yeah, it might seem funny now, but later on it's not gonna be funny. Like if you look up all those videos on TikTok with kids doing their homework, they're making fun of it. I don't think that's funny at all.
Right. I agree. I agree. And so, Cece, I'm going to go back to what you just shared, and I'm going to do two sides to that because I agree with you. It is up to the parent to make sure that their child is getting the education that they need and that they're on track. However, I'm going to read this stats to you and I'm going to say my point here. So in the US with literacy, adult literacy, approximately 79% of adults have basic literacy, 21%, which roughly averages to about 43 million people, they struggle with fundamental reading and writing. So just the basic fundamentals of reading and writing. And of those adults, 54% read below a sixth grade level and 20% read below a fifth grade level. And this is according to the National Literacy Institute.com. And so with that in mind, I feel that a lot of that, even though I agree with you with the parents, like you and I and Nadine, thankfully, we have education, we know. But to those numbers, a lot of these kids are growing up in a society where it's like the blind leading the blind. Mom and dad can't even read. So how can they really lead their child to, or know if they're on the right track, if they're not even on the right track themselves?
So with that sixth grade education, you still, because you will have the basic phonetic, with phonics, sounding out letters and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
they have that basic premise, that foundation. So
Mm-hmm.
they can help their child in that regard. And the thing is too, it comes with, it's a paradigm shift. So if the parent knows, okay, I only have a sixth grade education, or I can only read on a sixth grade level, they may be embarrassed, right? That might be a component that kind of takes
Right.
place with it as well. But at some point, the parent has to want better, a good parent, right? Because not all parents are good parents, right? Let's just be real. But at some point, they have to take the onus and say, hey, I don't read on your level, but I want you to do better than me. And there's
Right.
tons of programs that are out there. And I understand, right? They can't, possibly read, on a, academic, standard level, whatever the case may be. But there are resources at the library. They can open up their mouths and talk.
right? Hey, at the libraries, they had people at the library all the time for different things. Hey, do you guys
Mhm.
have anything here? I'm trying, and they can get the education too. And then too, you know what? You don't even have to read these days. These computers read to you. You see what I'm saying? So to me, there's no
Exactly.
excuse. At the end of the day, if you want to do better, you'll do better. My mom divorced when I was very young. She was a single parent for a bit of time, and she made a difference in our life. She chose to parent differently. She chose to do better. And so therefore she did better. She wasn't ashamed. I know a lot of people are ashamed, but at some point when you're a good parent and you want better for your child, you don't care if you look a fool to anybody else because you want to get those resources for your child. You see what I'm saying? So it takes that grit, right? It takes that grit and people just saying, I want better for my kid. I want better for myself.
Mhm.
Because the parents and the students, their kids can go and learn to read together. How
Right.
invigorating is that? You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And I know
Listen,
people say, well, I'm working 5 jobs and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. Okay, I understand all of that. I get that trust, truly. I really get it. I really do. Right. I wasn't born with the silver spoon in my mouth, but still at some point, how important it is for you to make a living and to make, make money and stuff and provide for your family. You still have to invest in your child. So you still got to carve some piece of time out for your child because the child never asked to be here and the child shouldn't be the one that suffers at the end of the day because the parent didn't make the right decision or they weren't afforded certain things or whatnot. I know life's for everybody, but we are resilient people. We are people of great fortitude. It only takes one to change the world, right? And so even with the one who didn't have all of the resources, who didn't have the silver spoon, who didn't have the money, who didn't have the education, they still made a difference. Do you know
yeah,
how many of the people, in civil rights and all of these things, and even before then, was still making a difference? We got Sojourner Truth. I mean, these people, they didn't know how, you know what I'm saying? But they
Yep.
made a way.
they
You
make it
figure out a
happen.
way. We are very creative as a people.
Mhm. They make it happen.
Absolutely.
I remember growing up, my dad had a whole set of encyclopedia in the living room, like in on a bookshelf. And every time I do homework, I have to use the encyclopedia.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that encyclopedia because I remember as a kid, I remember like these people going around selling those encyclopedias, right? And I remember my mom saying, I'm going to make an investment in my children because she didn't have, all of, but she's like, I'm going to buy this. And you know what she did? She shared them. She shared them with like the other kids, you know what I'm saying? Because their families might not could have afforded it, you know what I'm saying? Not that she could have even afforded it, but she was like, I'm gonna put this money aside to make sure my children can do their work. You know what I'm saying? So it's a mindset, truly it is, and we can make lemonade out of all the lemons that we are giving. You just have to want to. We
Yeah,
gotta,
Absolutely.
yeah.
See,
fact.
Dr. PC, she shared a lot of food for thought here, a lot of resources. So, again, no excuse. You can be a better version of yourself starting now. You just got to have that initiative. You got to push. If you have a certain level of reading, go ahead. Like she said, go to the library, you know, pick up a book. Computers read for you nowadays. They have different programs. Even what Hooked on Phonics. I mean, I still remember that from back in the day. That helps you with reading. So there is no excuse. Absolutely. I agree with you. And you said a lot of food for thought. So that's exactly what I was looking for. That's why I did that purposely to pick your brain. See, you see how I did that? I picked your
So,
brain.
so
You're
many
so
programs
creative, creative.
on YouTube. I mean, they have so many apps, Duolingo if you want to speak Spanish, Russian, German, and so many different programs for free on YouTube as well. So
Yep. Just keep pushing. You got this for sure. Absolutely. I love it. So I do have another topic I wanted to talk about and then possibly a third one. But before that, I want to do some quick announcements here. Anyone traveling or prepping to travel to the Dominican Republic, according to travel.state.gov, they are actually at a level 2 where they're exercising increased caution traveling to the Dominican Republic, and that's due to heavy crime. So just be mindful that there's heavy crime. So with that, be mindful of your surroundings. Do not go outside of your area. Please, please, just be careful. There is theft, robbery, killings. Just yeah, getting scary out here. So just as a heads up for those traveling to the Dominican Republic, I got this alert yesterday, and I want to make sure you all receive that because I know summer tends to be a high travel time for a lot of people. And so if you are thinking of traveling, just be mindful. And even not even just the DR, just in general, anywhere you decide to go, look up state travel.state.gov, just to familiarize yourself with just the different travel levels, anything you have to be mindful of, especially when you're traveling to a different country. Now, question for you two ladies. In the military, when you all had to travel, I know you typically were in base when you were overseas, right? Were there ever rules of thumbs if you ever decided to leave that base
Yeah.
area?
Oh yeah, there's
Absolutely.
always
You had a
restrictions
you had
every
a whole
time.
indoctrination like given because because when you're going overseas, there's customs and things and courtesies that you need to know about, the do's and the don'ts so you don't offend or get arrested, right? So you definitely go through a class. They take you through this whole indoctrination. It's called customs and courtesies. And just like we have customs and courtesies in the armed forces, because there are certain things we do and we don't do and ways that we behave, it's the same thing when you go overseas. So I remember being in Bahrain and Jebel Ali and those places like that over in the Middle East. And for women, and Nadine can attest to this, like, we have to wear long sleeves and it's hot over there. Like, it's like in hell hot. You meet the devil himself face to face. He's standing in the grocery store line. You know what I'm saying? It's hot, right? And, but we have to cover up. And so I remember wearing my fiance at the time. I was like, I need some long sleeve shirts, some button ups, because all my stuff, you want to wear shorts and skirts and dresses and all of that. And so I had to literally like have on my jeans. I borrowed like my boyfriend's shirt, my fiance at the time, I borrowed his shirt, like, hey, and we had to go out in town like that. So we weren't looking like super, super cute. We were really, covered up and stuff. I mean, they didn't even sell like gum in some places in Singapore. Nah, they don't really do that because they don't want that on the streets. Deodorant was like a misnomer that you didn't see that over where because they didn't wear that. You know what I'm saying? So we're like, ooh, they stink. They probably thought we stunk because we had all of our perfumes and deodorants and all of that. But they definitely do take you through. I remember going even into Italy, Japan, all of that stuff. You had the classes because you need to know. And you just taught me something, Yessie, about the travel state doc, because I didn't know that was a thing. So
I knew that as a travel agent. Yeah.
Yeah, so we can go and check that out for ourselves because it's important to know. I know we're here in the US and we can travel, we speak the language, but every state is different and you definitely need to know. So thank you for sharing that resource because I'll be checking that out. We did want to go to the DR, but things are a little hot and heavy. We might have to put that on the back burner for now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when I book travel, especially overseas, I go to that website so that I especially had a friend who wanted to go to Egypt, and I said no, it's time to travel because they have all that information on the website, so it'll tell you whether or not you're able to go. So I even go on that website too to find out. They have like different links if you go into a certain country, like what are the criteria, if you're going to need a visa, a lot of important information on that website. And I know Sandra had put a lot of information out there because she already took some of the words out of my mouth, like Singapore and stuff. They don't even sell gum in Singapore. It's illegal. You can't chew gum. You'll get lashed if you get caught littering on the street or spitting gum.
Wow. 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 I will say that so for a person like me, I'm very sensitive to bad smells, and smelling people's body odor makes me gag and almost want to throw up. So I'm not sure if there's other people that are similar to that. But with that in mind, like in coming across those individuals who had, no deodorant or perfume, and they just can help that they have the foul smell on. Like, how did you all deal with that? Because I have to walk away and just leave it completely. But I know you all were in a different situation where you have to be there working.
Yes.
Them. So
Yeah, you're surrounded by it. It's their way of life, right? So I'm pretty sure they thought we smelled awful, even though we had perfumes and soap and all the smell goods that we think it smells good. But for them, it's just their natural body odor, right? So they just let it all hang out. Literally, it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of watch your face, right? So you got to have that poker face on at all times, because I'm telling you, the stench is something real. And a lot of you have probably been experiencing this even in America because we have a lot of Indians, influx in our country, and they continue with their same cultures and what I'm saying. So they're still living their dream of just natural body scents and whatnot. I experienced that yesterday where I was out shopping and I was like, whoa, you know what I'm saying? I wanted to get out of. I feel you, yes, yeah. I wanted to get out of line, but there are a lot of culture, not just just the dig on the Indians or whatever, but it's just their culture. You know what I'm saying? So they probably think we stink and we think that they stink or whatever, but it's just their culture. But just knowing, keeping that poker face and being respectful, because it's not like they think that they smell bad. You know what I'm
right.
saying? It's
No, I
just
got
that's their culture. just like, some women prefer not to shave. And we'd be like, oh, that's so not, but that's you know what I'm saying? So it's just different. So it's just respecting everybody's cultures. And again, just, maybe having I had those little roll-ons, Jesse, I would put on my wrist, to smell. So I'll kind of have my wrist up to my nose so I could try, you know what I'm saying? Because it's just different for everyone. So
Absolutely. That's smart. Yeah, with me, it's like I've been like this since I was a kid, where it's like bad smell is just, I can't, my body was like, ooh, like it's just, it's gonna be obvious. It's gonna be obvious, right? I'm gonna start like turning red and like, ooh, and I just have to run off. So, woo, gosh,
I can see you turning up your nose now, Yesty.
I mean, and even for me, and so let me say this: I respect that it is part of the culture, and I get that completely. I just want to understand. I want to go deeper, and maybe in the future we can have someone within that culture to help me understand, like, what alternatives are there when you do feel like you're not smelling your best, right? Naturally, I get it. Natural. A lot of cultures practice being, more natural. So I'm sure there has to be alternatives that they can use, in not necessarily using deodorants and things like that. So for me, I know, because I have a very sensitive nose, and I often smell things I don't want to smell, even when I feel like I'm not smelling up to par. I quickly jump in the shower and refresh myself to feel refreshed. Like, this is part of who I am. So yeah, I get it. Everybody's different.
And you know what? Like, to the countries and cultures, I had mentioned the Indians, and I have Indian friends, and I'm like, okay, woohoo. But I think I feel, right, because they allowed their natural body odors to come forth in the way in which God intended, right, and not to mask smells with deodorants and antiperspirants. They're healthier. Their bodies are able to breathe. They're able to excrete the toxins. You see what I'm saying? Your body's made to sweat. When we wear antiperspirants, what does? It clogs up the ducts underneath your axilla, and so that can internally cause, you're saying, issues. Things are trying to come out, but it can't, and all that kind of stuff. The perfumes, all the chemicals, right? All the chemicals and things that we use on a day-to-day to smell good with perfumes and colognes and all that, they're not doing that. So their skin can breathe. Their skin is healthier. Their skin is not being bombarded with all of these fragrances and things too that people can have allergens to. So you think about it in that way, too. And so they're really saving themselves from a lot of different allergic reactions and responses to all of these different chemicals and toxins that we have, and the things that we say smell good, our soaps and all that stuff. Because even soap, if you didn't know, a natural good soap does not lather. You have to put a chemical that's called lye even in soap for it to bubble up into lather, right?
Wow.
So that shouldn't be. So I've used soaps that don't lather, and you're like, am I clean? Because it's not, lathering up and that kind of thing. So, I take my hat off to the cultures that, they are proud, they're strong, and they do it. I understand it's a difference for them, and it's a difference from us, and it's just something that we have to kind of come to the table with together and be like, I respect that this is your culture, but this is not mine. And so, it's a fine line. But I'm glad we're having the conversation. I'm really glad that we're having the conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. And then too, as a previous dental tech, to let you guys know, you definitely don't need toothpaste to brush your teeth. All you need is a toothbrush to clean your teeth, clean between the crevices of your teeth. The only reason why we use toothpaste, I know they're saying all these whitening mumbo jumbo. That's bull. So you basically use a toothpaste to get the flavor and the freshness on your breath. So your only thing you need is a toothbrush to clean your teeth. But of course you want your breath, smelling fresh. So it's the reason why you use toothpaste.
That's good to know.
Yeah. And truly the scents that come from your body and from your breath, that's really an internal issue, right? Your body's telling you something. People with the white coated tongues, versus the pink, coated tongues, and your body's sending you messages. It's letting you know areas where it's unhealthy, areas where it needs some help, things of that nature. Because in Africa and other places, they chew like on this, it's a bark. I forget the name of it, but it's just like, it looks like a stick. And that cleans your teeth. It whitens your teeth. It's all that's needed. Like all the dental flossing and all that stuff, it's not even necessary. All the stuff that we've created truly is money making, and they've done it well, and they've conditioned us well enough to to make money off of us. And so they continue to invent, new things and so on and so forth, and tell you, yeah, you gotta, see the dentist every so often and get that deep cleaning and all of that stuff and so on and so forth.
Money,
But
they
do we
want
really
money.
though?
Well, you know what people don't understand. Well, I know probably some people don't, but a lot of people, especially in the Caribbean, they should know too that sugarcane also cleans your teeth. You don't have a toothbrush, you eat sugarcane, and sugarcane will clean your teeth. Did you know
That's
that?
good food for thought. No, at all. Because that was going to be my follow-up question. I know CC shared that what people in Africa do, that they have the ability to chew that fungus that she was referring to, but in general, like here within the States, or like you said, the Caribbean, they have the sugar cane. But in the States, for individuals who want to do natural and don't want to use toothpaste, like, do you have any recommendation on natural alternatives that can help freshen their breath?
Absolutely. Just like having mint, like mint leaves and like even basil, that helps, because these things too have antibacterial properties in them as well as just peppermint. Fluoride toothpaste, they are deadly. We don't need it. We have fluoride in our water in the US, right? In the US, we have fluoride in our water. That's more than enough. You know what I'm saying? But they had to have the added fluoride in our toothpaste. That's detrimental to your body. So even having like the moringa and those types of things, toothpaste, because it's natural. You know what I'm saying? Even you can use baking soda, not all the time because it is a little bit of abrasive and it can kind of wear down the enamel on your teeth and things of that nature. But just regular everyday products. You can do oil pulling and not even use a toothbrush. Just coconut oil or even olive oil. You swish it around. Now it tastes awful, so I do add a little bit of mouthwash. I'm gonna keep it real, just to give you a little bit of flavoring, and just swish it for like 15 minutes. It will do your mouth wonders because it pulls a lot of the toxins and things out of your mouth, a lot of the bacteria, and it's so beneficial. And so, yeah, absolutely, you can utilize those things. You know what I'm saying? Your diet is really truly is what's giving you the odors from your body, from your breath, right, from your pores. It's what you're ingesting. It's coming out in some way, form, or fashion. So when you have like the foul poops and the foul breath and the stinky skin or whatever, it's because these are toxins and poisons in our bodies. A lot of times with the chemicals that we're even using to try to combat, what I'm saying, the odors and things of that nature. So keep it natural. Keep it natural from God's green earth, using the mint leaves, using the peppermint leaves, using the basil, even like oregano, because oregano is an antibacterial as well. It'll burn a little bit, you know what I'm saying, but it'll get in there. So the oil pulling is amazing, and you will have white, clean teeth, fresh breath. You will feel it from the inside out, and you just swish that around, while you're getting dressed and whatever you're doing, and then spit it out, and you're golden.
I'm gonna send you guys the videos on that. Cece was right. That's why I was like, when she started talking about it, I'm like, yes, I was gonna speak on that. For the past couple of days, I've been doing. I mean, I naturally have white teeth. A lot of people say, "Oh, you used to work in dental tech. That's why your teeth are white." I mean, my teeth are naturally white. But I started doing this again, Cece, and yes, a few days ago, because I watched a video now. It just reminded me to do it. The oil pulling. I have the coconut thing on my kitchen counter. So they said to do it at night and do it for at least 7 days, and you'll see how white your teeth start showing if you do the oil pulling. So you basically swish it at night before you go to bed. After you're done, brush your teeth and everything, you swish it, put a little bit on a teaspoon, swish it around for a few minutes before you go to sleep, and do it for a couple of days and watch the difference.
That's awesome. So remind me again the oils that you mix together to do the oil pulling.
It's just basically coconut oil that you could buy in the supermarket. The coconut oil.
And that's it.
Coconut oil.
So the one in the tub. Just get a teaspoon
of
that.
Capful, like a little medicine cup, that comes like on the little Tylenol, all the stuff, like for the kids and stuff. Just use a little cup like that, pour it in there, and utilize it. Yeah.
And you might not get the one that's oil form because sometimes it's kind of hard. So just if you buy the one in the tub in the supermarket, just use a teaspoon and get some out and put it in your mouth and switch it around. Sometimes it's hard because it's kind of hard. You got to chew it out, let it melt, and just switch it around for a few minutes and spit it out and go to bed.
That's cool. Good to know. Okay. Good food for thought. You all are teaching me some things here too. That's awesome. Definitely going to do that for sure. What I did read on coconut is when it is in that hard substance, that's because it's natural and organic. So I assume that that's the best version that you would want to buy compared to one that's a little bit more liquidy or oily, because that means that there might have been added other elements to it. Would you agree with that?
Well, sometimes if it's in the tub form and it's liquidy, so, it probably melts, so it doesn't make a difference. If it's
Okay.
natural coconut oil, then sometimes depends on how it's stored or the temperature where it's at, then it might melt. But then if you want it in a little bit hard form, you can just stick it in the freezer. I mean, the refrigerator for like 5 minutes and let it hardens up and utilize it like that. So
Yeah, I keep mine in my bathroom right on my sink. And in the winter times it'll gel, like it'll congeal, so it'll get a little bit harder. And then summers it'll loosen up a little bit. Because I use it on my skin and all that stuff too, because it's really good, it's really good for that. But yeah, I mean, this is the coconut. I mean, anything natural that you can use from God's green earth, use it.
but here's the thing.
I'm
sorry, Stacey, go ahead.
Yeah, it definitely has those medicinal properties, right, to be able to help you out. Because, I mean, we put all the additives and things in our food. Did you guys know that organic, the USDA organic has nothing to do with the food, like being healthier and all this stuff? This is something we can probably get in on the next show, but I didn't know that. And so one of the doctors that in the food industry, she was doing a podcast about it. And I was like, are you kidding me? But it was just a way for farmers. Well, you know what? Let's just put a pin in that, because you guys you're really going to enjoy what you're going to learn about this on next week. Okay. So it's like a cliffhanger.
Yes.
Wow.
Right. And since you were touching about the coconut oil, before I forget, I use coconut oil in my body butters.
That's awesome. That's really good. Yeah.
Wait a minute. Yes, Cece did yes to get her body butter.
Nope. We got to meet up and I got to give it to her.
We do.
I
Yeah.
got it right in the cute little bag and everything.
It sounds like I still got you got to send me over the shoes too whenever you come back from the trip.
Yes, indeed. Yep, that's right. So we're going to come bearing lots of gifts.
Hey, yes. Shout out to my honey Rod one for supporting. He definitely does use coconut oil and coconut daily, so that is a fact.
Yes. You could use it in your hair. You could use it, for everything.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, like I said, I learned that new with the, what is it called? Oil pulling. Is that what you call it?
Yeah, oil pulling. Yep, just Google oil pulling and you'll see all the stuff that comes up. I do it like when I'm getting ready in the morning. After I pray and everything, I'll just put that oil and stuff in my mouth as I'm getting dressed and washing my face and doing all, I'm just doing other stuff. And it's like my 15, 20 minutes to go by in a jiff and I'm good.
That's awesome. All right. So we're going to pivot over to another important and strong conversation that we should have, especially for a lot of those dealing with this type of condition, right? I know a lot of veterans, they suffer from this as well. And in light of June being the awareness month for this, let's spotlight PTSD. So June is PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder month, which is a psychiatric condition triggered by traumas, which include anything relating to combat or military exposure, physical or sexual assault, serious accidents such as a car accident or crash, natural disasters, example, hurricanes, fires, etc., childhood abuse, trauma, neglect, or even witnessing violence or death. Now, PTSD symptoms fall into 4 different categories. So the first category is called intrusion, where you're getting flashbacks, you have nightmares, intrusive memories, and you're like feeling overwhelmed with all that. That's level 1. Level 2 is avoidance, avoiding reminders of the trauma. So let's say, for example, if someone was sexually assaulted at the club, they purposely avoid going to the club because they have that reminder of that trauma. 3, hyperarousal, which deals with anger, anxiety, insomnia, hypervigilance. And 4, negative mood or condition changes, such as feeling guilty, ashamed, attached. You have memory gaps. And so with June being PTSD Awareness Month, the goal here that we have is to increase the understanding of PTSD and symptoms. So if you are a viewer and listener and any of the symptoms that I just called out, if you feel like that, please go see a doctor or a psychiatrist for that. And it's okay. There's no shame. Seek help for sure. I encourage you to seek that help, especially if you feel like you're struggling, you don't know how to push forward, because the goal here is we want to reduce that stigma. especially around the veterans, are men and women and even children who are dealing with similar situations because of different traumas, abuses, etc. So, ladies, what are your thoughts around PTSD, especially you all both having that military background?
Yeah, I know a lot of people that had PTSD. I mean, I myself went through PTSD because of the trauma that I dealt with dealing with abusive leadership. Definitely.
Oh, my Jesus.
What was that?
That was lightning. Sorry.
Yeah, it's like the same thing.
Did you see that?
It's about to go
I
down.
heard it. I heard
It's
the
about
thunder, but I didn't see the lightning.
Yeah, it's about to go down.
I was by my house yesterday. That's how I felt yesterday. I was sitting by the window.
Oh, gosh. Okay. All right. So, I'm going to hurt myself here. All right, so what were you saying, Nadine? Sorry about that. That lightning caught me off guard there.
No worries. I'm saying no. It's a real thing, especially when you dealt with abusive leadership. Whether I mean, it's not just the military, but speaking on the military, like you're dealing with combat exposure for the people that were deployed. You're dealing with loss of a fellow service members, and you're dealing with a lot of life-threatening experiences, especially if you've dealt with sexual trauma in the military. All those things. And also, like, I've dealt with PTSD because I've dealt with the abusive leadership. And remembering, like, we were up in Jacksonville for CC's graduation, and we had like one of our fellow service member. He was reading from my book and reading one of my chapters from when I dealt with abusive leadership, and just remembering all those things, like I was literally there while he was reading, and it brought me back to some memories. And I'm just glad that I went through therapy so that I could combat those feelings, because if you don't go through therapy, then all those emotions are going to keep coming back. You're going to start crying, and you could tell that I was healed because I didn't cry anymore, because people are just cruel, and little things could just set somebody off. So the most important thing is for you to get the proper help that you need dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder. When people talk about PTSD and post-traumatic stress disorder, it doesn't mean just from being in combat. There's a lot of different things that you could deal with PTSD.
Absolutely. You made a good point. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that feedback for sure.
And I too, suffer with, I don't put the D on any of it. I just simply say post-traumatic stress. The disorder just thinks puts like a negative connotation on it. And that's just me. And there's different ways in which we can say things. You can say post-traumatic illness or injury or something like that, So I'm one of those people. But the whole world has PTS, believe it or not. And that's a fact. COVID happened to the entire universe. And I take that back, because in some places, in some continents, because it was so rural and so indigenous and so up, they really didn't experience the COVID, right? So I take that back. I was like, oh, the whole world, but almost the whole world, right? The majority experienced the PTS. And it can be, like you said, yes, something as far as like having a car accident. My aunt suffered a car accident, and she didn't drive in almost 10 years on the freeway. She would take the back roads because her anxiety and heart palpitations and all those things. And I didn't even know I suffered with PTS until I started going to therapy, because I suffered a traumatic brain injury, and I began to have like a different kind of personality disorder in a sense. And I was really irritable and cranky and just mean, and just because everything was changing and I didn't really have any control. But as I went to the counselor and began to talk, and we began to discuss things, they diagnosed me with the PTS, and I was like, wow, And even in that setting, I was still like, I am not a disorder. I am not my diagnosis. I'm something so much bigger and greater. But just having the words, to be able to define that what's going on with me, it kind of brought some relief in a sense. And then again, it kind of brought on another level of anxiety, because it's like, how do I combat this now? And so the therapy for all those people that are out there that don't want to seek counseling and get help and all those things, there's no shame in your game to do that. I would say, if you don't go and get the help, that's more of a weakness and not a strength. For those people that do rise up and say, hey, I'm going to go and talk to somebody, that is so much bravery. That is so much courage. And I commend all of you who have done that, and all of those who are waiting in the wings, just kind of like, oh, no, it's not cool to do that. I'm just going to pray about it. Definitely pray about it. Absolutely, 100%. But God has given us resources in the earth as well. And we need to talk to people. That's why he created Adam and Eve, right? To have a companion, someone to bounce things off of, someone to help you talk it through, someone to help you process, right? So it's important to be able to go and get the counseling that's needed. There's free counselings that are out there. There's counselings that you can do online. There's counseling that you can do and be completely anonymous. They never see your face. They never know your name. You just simply talk about it on a screen, on a Zoom call. You just log in, you make it happen. You see what I'm saying? So there is
Right.
always a resource. There's always help out there for those who truly want it. Because some of you are going through some things right now, and say maybe it's not even PTSD, say it's some other disorder or something, right? And you don't know what it is and why you're feeling the way that you're feeling, and people are saying, oh, just suck it up and get over it. But there's something truly, truly going on, and you know it deep down. You deserve, right? You owe it to yourself to go and to talk to a counselor, to get that name for it, that term for it. Now, you don't have to define yourself as that, but when you get a name, I'm telling you, it sheds such greater light on it. And what you find out is that there's support groups and that you're not alone. And what I also found out too, that my PTS wasn't as bad as the next person. You see what I'm saying? Because some people were like really, really extreme. You know what I'm saying? And those categories that you mentioned, some people had experienced all of those and then some probably, you know? So,
Right.
make it a point to go and to talk to somebody. And so I'm glad that the ears are out there listening under the sounds of our voices, so that you know that, hey, we're cheerleaders in your corner, right? Here on Oyandia TV. We're those cheerleaders, you know, aiding you on and say, hey, go do it, get the help, because it's going to better you, make you better. It's also going to better your loved ones around you.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and it's your body and your brain in survival mode. That's why, you know, when people are fighting, and, you know, a lot of people are fighting not to take medication, it's your brain and your body trying to survive. So a lot of different therapy, especially for veterans, that you could go through. You know, you could do therapy, EMDR, and I know Cece, she's familiar with all these terminology. She, you know, and, you know, you could basically also call the Veterans Crisis Line. You have the VA services, and you could do a lot of different things, a lot of different hobbies to try to keep your mind off of it. Like even a lot of celebrities that, you know, unalive themselves, I'm sure there was some sort of PTSD or mental injury that they were going through as well. You also have NAMI, National Alliance for Mental Illness. You could definitely go through that. And like Cece said, there are a lot of different anonymous hotlines that you could call without, even if you're active duty, that people won't even know. You won't only reason, and one and only reason they'll give your information out, call your command, unless you're speaking about hurting yourself or hurting somebody else. But you could stay completely 100% anonymous.
That's great, great information. Thank you both for sharing that. And also, just to add that extra layer, just as a reminder that individuals suffering from PTSD, those also affect your relationships. So whether it be parenting, you know, you have that hypervigilance and emotional numbing or outburst that interferes with the bonding and consistent caregiving that you're giving to your children. Also, intimacy lowers your sexual drive, emotional satisfaction. Now you're wanting to avoid intimacy. You have trust issues. That affects your relationship as well. And even just trust and reaction overall with other relationships. So now you're sharing that heightened aggression against people, mistrust, you know, just different things that really affect your different types of relationships as a result of PTSD. So like both Nadine and Cece shared, I also encourage you all to go get that help. It's okay. It happens, right? This is life. This is what OND is about. We're here to help you out and share all these amazing resources, knowledge, food for thought for you to start wondering, hey, it's time for that positive change in my life. So yes.
And PTSD doesn't mean that you're broken. It just means that your mind survived it, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're a survivor. Like Beyonce's song said, or was it Destiny's Child? I'm a survivor. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to stop. Hey. Yes. We have had some amazing, juicy conversations as per usual. This is why I always enjoy our hot conversations, especially with the whole segment too, where the three of us come together and we're just brainstorming, sharing just different food for thought, stats. Like I love this. This is why this needs to happen a lot more often too. And don't get me wrong, I always enjoy our guests and I love the layer that the guests bring. But when we have these conversations, we share another layer of one-on-one intimacy with our listeners and viewers, because we're sharing other resources and information that we may not get to share when we do have a guest on. So I always appreciate the three of us coming together and fellowshipping, kumbayaing, and just sharing all this knowledge, food for thought for everyone to absorb. So with that in mind, we're going to pivot over to our last minute words, where we get to say and remind who we are, where they can find us, any next steps, quotes, whatever it is that you want to share. So let's see. Cece, you want to start us off? And then we go with Nadine, and then I'll go last.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So guys, you guys know me, see under the actions with Inspire for Purpose. I just want to say, remember, nothing positive ever came from negative thinking. So stay in that positive light, because that positive light is going to help you to move to the next level, move into the next dimension even. So always keep that positive thinking and just know that you can do it. If people out there are telling you that you can't, know that we here at Oyendia TV, we believe in you and we know that you can. So as I always love to say, love and light and inspire for purpose.
Nadine, tell us a little bit about you, where people can find us.
Awesome. Yes, Nadine Barton, the author, Navy veteran, and entrepreneur travel agent. You can basically find me on Facebook, Nadine Barton, as you see here on the screen, or Nadia B_1202 on Instagram. And I always say life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you react. So treat people kind.
Wonderful. And as for me, I am Yessie Rodriguez, host and producer. For those who want to find out who is Yessie, just go on Google, type in Yessie Rodriguez. You'll find who I am, my social media handles, websites, etc. Also, I want to give a big shout out to Nadine and Dr. Cece. Shout out to all that they have going on, their businesses, their books, they're authors. So go check out their books as well on Amazon. We just have a lot of amazing talent on this show. And so I'm really, really honored that God brought us together to do this together here. Shout out to our sponsors. We have Collective Wear, Divine Beauty and Accessories, Nadine's Travel Oasis. We'll be right back.
Sponsored by Collective Wear. Sponsored by Divine Beauty and Accessories. Watch Oyendia TV Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Dream, explore, discover with Nadine's Travel Oasis. Your next adventure is just a booking away. From breathtaking beaches to vibrant cityscapes, we handle the details so you can make the memories. Luxury, leisure, or last-minute getaways, we've got you covered. Book today and let Nadine's Travel Oasis take you places.
For those who want to be guests on Oyendia TV, or you want to be a sponsor, just reach out to us, oyendiatv@gmail.com. It is scrolling at the bottom of your window view, or wherever you're looking at it, whether it be your cell phone, TV, what have you. The email address is scrolling at the bottom of the page. Thank you. Thank you. This is why we are here, to motivate, inspire, enlighten, educate, and entertain you all, viewers and listeners, with each and every episode. And like I always say, always remember, don't say the sky's the limit. But say this: the sky is never the limit, because the galaxies, they're endless. Thank you all for tuning into another episode of Oyendia TV. Until next week.